You know that feeling when you're in a perfectly good relationship, someone who actually shows up, and somehow it still doesn't feel right? Like you're waiting for something to go wrong. Or maybe it's the opposite. You give everything. You need constant reassurance, and you still can't stop worrying. So why does love feel like this? Why does it feel like it was almost designed to be hard for you specifically? Today we're going into something that quietly runs almost every relationship you've ever had. How your childhood shaped the way you love, and what you can actually do to start changing it. But before we get into it, this channel exists because emotions deserve real explanations. At Psychology Vault, we break down the psychology behind why you feel what you feel and why you love the way you love in a way that actually makes sense for your real life. If that's the kind of content that hits home for you, subscribing means you'll keep getting it, because what we're about to cover might completely change the way you understand the relationships in your life. Let's go. One thing before we start, I left a question pinned in the comments about this exact thing. If you've ever noticed a pattern in your relationships you couldn't quite explain, go answer it. I read every single reply. 1. Your brain built its blueprint for love before you could even name it. Before you ever fell for someone, your brain was already building a model of what love feels like. Psychologists call this your attachment system, the emotional blueprint formed in early childhood based on how your caregivers responded to your needs. Consistent, distant, warm, and then suddenly cold. Your brain filed all of it under, "This is what love is." Think of it like the tutorial level in a video game. You didn't choose the settings, you didn't even know you were playing, but the game has been running those rules ever since. And the wild part is, your adult brain keeps seeking out the familiar version of love, even when that version wasn't kind to you. 2. Familiar doesn't mean healthy, it just means known. This is the part that catches most people off guard. The reason some of us keep choosing emotionally unavailable people isn't because we like being hurt, it's because our nervous system recognizes the pattern. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion. We unconsciously recreate familiar emotional dynamics because the brain finds them easier to predict, even when they're painful. It's like your Spotify algorithm queuing up the same sad song for years. It's not helping you, but it knows your taste perfectly. Calm, consistent love can feel unsettling if you grew up where love came with conditions or unpredictability. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your brain hasn't learned to trust that kind of quiet yet. And what's coming up next is the one that usually makes people sit with it for a minute, because it explains why some of us pull away and others can't stop holding on. 3. There are two ways this wires you, and both of them make complete sense. If love was available but inconsistent growing up, your brain often develops anxious attachment, a pattern where your sense of safety depends almost entirely on the other person's responses. You become a hyper monitor for signs of approval. Think of it like having your phone on Do Not Disturb, but refreshing the app every 5 minutes anyway. But if love was available only when you didn't need it, if vulnerability felt unsafe, your brain can develop avoidant attachment instead, pulling away from closeness the moment a relationship starts getting real. And here's the part that sounds counterintuitive but is completely true. The avoidance isn't coldness, and the anxiety isn't neediness. Both are just people who wanted to be held, wired differently by what happened next. Now that you understand where these patterns come from, the part coming up is the most important one, because this is where it stops being something that happened to you. 4. Your attachment style is not a life sentence. Here's what research on attachment consistently shows. Your attachment style is not fixed. The brain is neuroplastic. It can build new emotional associations through new, repeated experiences. Psychologists call this earned, secure attachment. You can develop a healthier relationship with closeness, either through consistent relationships or therapy, or both. Think of it like reinstalling the operating system. The old files are still there, but you get to choose which ones actually run. The shift starts the moment you can name what's happening inside you instead of just being swept away by it. The way you love right now isn't a flaw, it's a blueprint your nervous system built before you had any say. But here's what you can do with that. Think about the last time you felt suddenly anxious or distant in a relationship that was actually going well. Was it really about your partner, or did something remind your nervous system of something older? Think about what love looked like growing up, not what was said, but what was shown. How much of that are you still treating as the definition of what love is supposed to feel like? And if the pattern you carry disappeared tomorrow, what would you actually let yourself feel instead? Healthy love, when you're doing this kind of work, looks like noticing the pattern before you're deep in it. It looks like letting calm feel safe, even when calm is completely new. And if any of that feels bigger than a YouTube video can hold, talking to someone who really knows this stuff is always worth it. There's no version of this where asking for help is the wrong move. If you've ever felt like love was somehow harder for you than it seems to be for everyone else, you are not alone. And now you know it's not a mystery, it's a map. The most powerful thing you can do for your relationships right now isn't to find the right person. It's to understand why you respond to people the way you do. Because awareness doesn't just explain the pattern, it's where the pattern starts to loosen. If Psychology Vault feels like a place where you actually get understood, subscribing takes 1 second and means the next time something in your emotional life catches you off guard, there's already a video waiting for you. Thanks so much for being here, and until next time, take care of yourself.